Start crying now. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Great. Hey everyone, Kayleigh and Immanuel here. It's great to have you.
And today we want to share with you the most important and relevant advice that we received during our pre-marriage counselling. So we were asked, as we did a 8 weeks course and preparation course. So as we did an 8-week course to prepare for our marriage, we were asked what was the thing that stuck out most. And it was rather a culture that we were able to develop during those 8 weeks that we think is really relevant, helpful for us, and I think you can also benefit from. So this is what we're going to talk about today, and at the end of the video we're going to share some advice that we also learned from other friends that we want to pass on to you.
An extra bonus piece of advice.
So stick around to the end of the video. So one aspect of the advice that was around the topic of communication, curiosity and openness. And there was a quote that stuck with me from someone called Dr. Rowan Williams. And he was saying marriage is not only a commitment to spending your life with the other person, it is about the commitment to spend your life trying to find out about that person.
So what we like about this quote is the idea of finding out that it's exciting and that it does take some effort and some energy. And so in attending the course, we found that actually the act of us going each week, and every Thursday we'd go, and we were excited to go, and we knew that when we got there we'd be surrounded by other couples who were also taking time to really make a space and put in effort to talk about some really sensitive topics or topics that they've spoken about before, but in revisiting them you always found out new things.
So to me, marriage is one of the most impactful and greatest things I can do, achievements I can have in my life, and that's why it's so important for me as a husband to help build a purpose-built and strong marriage. And so one key aspect of that is really to talk about anything and everything.
Yeah, and I know that this advice is given all the time to talk about things. Communication is maybe hailed as the number one important thing in a relationship, and this definitely makes space for communication. But I think that when you and your partner both choose to make a specific time for those topics that maybe could end up in an argument, or maybe are just quite private or heart to heart, when you both are deciding to put that time aside, it really makes you both feel a bit safer as well in sharing, because you know it's a priority for the other person, and when you're both on the same page, then you can feel more open and you can share more easily when you've made that time.
So I would say there's two aspects of it. You have those kind of small things that are on your mind, but you don't want to bring them up in an everyday context. And so having that space really allows you to bring those things up. And then the second thing, which we already talked about, is the culture. And the culture in being very intentional in picking up when there is something where you are triggered, for example. Yeah. So, and that comes from being very clear about, well, what was my family upbringing? What is the culture that I'm bringing into? Because that is so crucial in what you expect and the routines, your communication style that you bring into the marriage. And so for me personally, my family upbringing, my parents were always very loving and very supportive. And one thing though I would say is that most of the times when it's like extreme emotions of happiness or extreme emotions of sadness, that's when it was then kind of encouraged to share more. But it was less of a habit, it was less of an everyday life thing where we would be intentional about, oh, so how did you feel about that? Or me sharing how did I feel about a specific situation. I personally am rather someone who's really trying to deal with my emotions by myself, and that leads me with not speaking enough, and
like
so
naturally. Yeah.
And so with us now creating this environment where when we see something, we try to relate it back to how was that relating to what we experienced in the past. Maybe that related to something that we missed. Maybe that related to some unresolved issues we've had in the past, some hurt feelings we've had in the past. And by picking up on those topics, we can help each other understanding more about each other.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Even if you and your partner don't have a problem to talk about in that moment or in that time you set apart, just the fact that you've decided to take the time gets you in a good habit, and also gets you used to having deeper conversations and helps you to see when your partner is more vulnerable.
At the end of the day, we now are a new family. We built our own family, and we are now creating the habits that we want our children to then also see and are impacted by. So it is really on us.
That's so true. And so something that actually inspired me was Will Smith's family, because I don't know if you guys have seen Jada Smith's Red Table Talk, but I just love how they sit down together as a family, they share, and their kids even are seeing their parents really resolve deep issues or deep topics. And I think that's something we're quite excited about when we do start a family, to actually include our children in some of those conversations, and to be able to help them get used to seeing that openness and like vulnerability from early on.
I think one example that we have seen in our relationship was very early, when I remember we were at our church in the students' ministry, and there was a specific scenario where we were talking about quite a controversial topic, and it was in a conversation of three, Kayleigh, myself, and a friend of ours, when I asked Kayleigh a few questions that
You asked me rhetorical questions.
I asked her rhetorical questions that were quite difficult to answer.
You were asking me questions that I thought you knew what answer you wanted, and maybe it would go against what I was saying, or would somehow,
You felt like I was cornered. I cornered you with my questions.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't. I had no bad will, bad intention behind that question. But all of a sudden, I realized you all of a sudden started to cry, and I was so overwhelmed. I was like, what do I do? What did I just do? Why are you starting to cry now? Right?
Yeah. And the thing is, that whole evening, like, you would also ask some of those questions to other people. So I was just this whole evening having these emotions build up, because this is something that was a strong part of my past, where those rhetorical questions were used against me, and I was being asked them with the intention of making me feel small and making me feel bad. So to me, I really didn't like it. I was like, why would Immanuel do that? He's so sweet and kind. Why is he being cruel? And I was just so sad. And then I realised where this feeling was coming from. And then I shared that with you and some others who were at the students' ministry. And they were like, yeah, okay.
And that's the whole thing about trying to find out about someone. So when you have those triggers where you feel like, oh, this really makes me feel uncomfortable, this really is stirring up something, as a partner, dig into and try to understand, ask questions, so that I can now understand you so much better, and I can relate and empathize with how you feel and how I should then also respond to that.
Yeah, it's easier to support each other. Yeah, should we give them the bonus tip?
Yeah, what's our bonus?
So, you're like, wait, we didn't prepare. Okay, so the bonus tip is called Sweet and Sour. So some friends of ours, actually shout out to Pastor Gabriel and Rebecca, because they gave us this tip. They said that I don't know if they had a set time, but every week or so, they do what's called sweet and sour. So they sit down with each other and they tell each other the good things that they're liking about the relationship and they want to keep doing. And then they also do the sour things that they don't want to keep doing.
So one specific thing you can try to cultivate is during a date night. I would also advise you to take date nights every now and then and be intentional about that. And on those date nights, you can talk about those things. You can say when you're in a relationship, what you like about the relationship, but maybe also so that you can say, this is something I appreciate in the last 2 weeks, something that you did. And this is something that really kind of I was bothered by from something you did in the last 2 weeks. And similarly, I would say when you're you can do this as well when you're not in a relationship, when you're in a friendship and you want to be intentional with your friend, with your best friend, you want to get closer to each other, you want to start understanding each other better. Maybe even there, you can introduce something like a sweet and sour. Yeah, you both need to want to do it.
Yeah.
But that's something, this sort of providing feedback is very helpful.
Yeah. So that's our tip. This is enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's it.
I like how you were saying it.
What did I say?
Last time. Thank you so much for watching the video.
Okay. And it's going to go in the video now, isn't it? So that was our bonus tip. Thank you so much for watching the video.
Make sure to click like and subscribe for more videos. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time.
See ya. Food time.